The Carolina Hurricanes start off the month of November with a loss to the Boston Bruins. Unfortunately, it is what it is. It was a goaltending battle, but the Hurricanes are still 7-4 in the season. Why there should be really no panic when it comes to where the Hurricanes are at, even with all the injuries that they've been dealing with. Also, the goaltending situation is going to be getting more interesting with Pyotr Kochetkov being officially back. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about the goalies on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers. Also the co-host of the Surge Cast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my dudes here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, we're going to be reacting to the Hurricanes' 2-1 loss to the Boston Bruins. Overall reactions, thoughts, and hearing what the guys said following the game. Also going to talk about the goalie situation as Pyotr Kochetkov is officially back after his conditioning stint with the Chicago Bulls, where he did get a win over the Milwaukee Admirals, and then why there should be really no panic for the Hurricanes at all, despite the fact that, they did lose to Boston, but they're still 7-4 in with the team that's still waiting for guys to get back, and once they do, I think everything should be back to normal for the Carolina Hurricanes. But before we jump into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, like I said, the Carolina Hurricanes played the Boston Bruins on Saturday, so we're kind of rewinding a little bit to talk about that. And overall, it was a really weird early afternoon game that some of the Hurricanes always find themselves into, where overall, you're facing a Boston Bruins team that was, 6-7 going into the game. They were playing okay. They won the last two games. We're playing some very weird hockey overall, but it's just one of those things where it turned into a goaltender duel between Frederik Andersen and Jeremy Swayman. And, the Hurricanes, did outshot Boston 29-22, held them to 11 in the first period, then 6-5 over the next two, while the Hurricanes had, 9, 9, and 11. But unfortunately, it just came up short. Both penalty kills did go 1-for-1. Surprisingly, there was only 2 penalties in this game. You could tell this was just one of those ones where it was a tight contest, but it was like who's the first blank is how the game was going to play out. I mean, even Ryan Brennamore said after the game, actually we got better as the game went on. When we got through the end of the first period, they only had 11 shots on net and 5 in the third total. We did a lot of good things. The problem is the 2 that we gave up, our defensemen got a little too aggressive and got caught. All of a sudden, they get 1 on a breakaway and 1 on an odd man 3-on-2 because our D just got a little too aggressive and it cost us. And that's basically what it came down to, because the fact that, both teams were, keeping each other at bay, not giving a lot of chances. It was a very defensive game for the most part, and the goalies played really well. It's just Boston was able to capitalize on their couple of their opportunities and bury the puck. I mean, Jordan Stahl said it when talking about, the goaltending and just talking about the game in general. When it came to goaltending, the captain said they were both good. Freddie gave us a chance, and that's what you want. I don't think we really tested Swayman enough like we normally do. He made some key saves when they needed it for sure. I mean, that's what happens when you have, shot totals of 9, 9, and 11 through 3 periods. Usually the Hurricanes are putting up 30 to 40 shots, only putting up 29. It's kind of where they usually, kind of keep other teams at bay for the most part. So that's kind of where you're looking at. And then talk about the game overall. Stahl said they sat back a lot of the game and just waited for their opportunities. Obviously, we didn't create enough, but we just have to kind of be more aware that there are long times we're in the offensive zone and we're just kind of flipping them out, taking off, and creating chances off that. It's a different style, but it's still effective, obviously, with the way the third period went. In this league, being down 2 with 10 minutes left, it's hard to come back. And it Really is. And you guys hear me say this a lot. In this day and age in the NHL, anyone can beat anyone. You got to be aggressive. You can't just, keep passing the puck around and not creating the opportunities. And that's basically what the Hurricanes did when, if you go look the game back or just look overall, it was one of those games where you kind of wish the Hurricanes pressed a little bit more and, force Boston to stay out of just kind of staying back and just try and create opportunities off of, mistakes or rosters or, trying to do counterattacks. And that's kind of what Boston did. They kind of just sat back and, they absorbed all those offensive minutes. And then when the Hurricanes got a little aggressive because, just being impatient or however it played out, Boston took advantage of it. And that's kind of what it came down to, because when you're looking at a team that's struggling on the goalie front of just, giving a lot of goals, they are scoring, but they're giving up a lot. The Hurricanes are a better 5-on-5 team, but if you don't really put the pressure on them and not shoot in the high volume that you're used to, then it's just kind of, you're playing into the other style of the game. You're not controlling the tempo. And that's what it came. And that's what it was. It's the Hurricanes, kind of let Boston kind of control the tempo for the most part. And then, get aggressive and they counterattacked, which is crazy to think about when you look at a game where, Alexander Nikisha played really well. You got Seth Jarvis playing really well. It's just one of those things where it's tough when you look at a game that a guy who just got hurt the game before was a game-time decision, had a game-high 5 shots on net and skated 17 minutes and 20 seconds. He was probably one of the most noticeable guys on the ice, especially for the forwards. And you look at the defense with Alexander Nikishin. He scored the only goal of the game for the Hurricanes, his second of the season, and the fact that he led the team in time on ice with 24 minutes and 41 seconds, and also, had game-tying 6 hits. When Nikishin leads both teams on time on the ice and had a game-high 6 hits, that really says something. And shout out to Walt Rudd for this stat. Nikishin ranks second among NHL rookies with 34 hits, only behind Chicago's Colton Dach at 48. That shows you how impactful Nikishin's already been for the Hurricanes, and the fact that in a game like this, where his 24-41 is a time on ice lead, and he threw 6 hits in this game, and he scored the only goal of the game. Like I said, it was his second of the season. Mark Jankowski gets his first assist of the year, and Jordan Martin got his 5th. But that came at 17-11. That's the thing. It's just you can't have a game where you're waiting for something to happen, and your best opportunity was from a rookie defenseman who got you the goal, and the fact that it was just Martin Jankowski with the points. And outside of that, you got the top line was -1s. Taylor Hall was a -1. And then it was a -2 for Sean Walker. But, there's not that much he can do. It's just he's trying his best, and Nikisha was a -1 as well. And then it was just a bunch of evens. Like, you look at the defense, Nikisha, 4 shots, 6 hits. Mike Riley, 2 shots, 3 blocks. Sean Walker, 3 shots, 2 blocks, a hit. And your defense can only do so much. And, of course, they got burned a little bit. But when you look at the forwards, you're looking at shots. Martin with a shot. Jankowski with a shot. Jarvis had 5. Ehlers had 4. Svetch had 3. Blake had 2. And then Nadeau and Taylor Hall both had 1. Aho, no shots. Stankoven, no shots. Jordan Stahl, no shots. You kind of see Kotkaniemi, no shots. And that's the thing when you look at this, it's the fact that, you guys, you got Aho with, hitting people with 3. Kotkaniemi with 4. But it's one of those things where this is a very defensive game. Goalies are standing on their heads, but then you're looking at guys that you need to get shots from, and you're not getting shots from some guys, or they're very limited. And it's one of those games where it's kind of like you want to see a little bit more out of it. But like I said, it's still early in the season. You're talking to a team who's still 7-4. There's really nothing to panic about, but it's just you're facing a Boston team who had 2 wins in a row. You're trying to find your way. You just came off a win against the Islanders. And the thing is, you hear me say it all the time, anyone can beat anyone in this league, but the way that the Hurricanes have had Boston's number over the last few seasons, you kind of felt at a good spot. Like, okay, maybe they can get a win out of this one. Swayman's kind of struggling. Boston's kind of middling around because, you got Zaka, you got, Geeky and Pasternak doing their thing, but even then, you kind of could take advantage of that. But It's just very limited number of shots, not the high volume you're kind of used to. You're not really challenging Swayman, and you're not really forcing Boston to make mistakes. You're kind of just playing their game. Then, you get a game like that where you lose 2-1, where in a game you kind of should have taken over. But it is what it is. Like I said, it's a long season. I mean, you've still got so many games to go. You're 7-4. You've got 71 games left. It's just you kind of go from there and see what happens. Now, that being said, the situation is going to be very interesting in terms of the goaltenders because Pyotr Kochetkov is back from being from his conditioning stint with the Wolves. What does that mean moving forward? Well, we'll talk about it here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push, whether it's your actual team that you root for or your fantasy team. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's be honest. Most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why you should start using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools makes it so much easier to understand where your money is going and how to make it work harder for you. So don't let the financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. The Hurricanes are now having themselves in a very interesting situation because with the fact that Pyotr Kochetkov now has been recalled off his conditioning stint from the Chicago Wolves, and where they're at right now in the goaltending, this makes it a very interesting decision what the Hurricanes want to do, because when you look at the team overall, Frederik Andersen, 7 starts, 4-3 record with a 296 goals against and 894 save percentage. Of course, he's 188 shots against, has saved 177, giving up 21 goals. Brandon Bussey in 4 starts, 3-1 with a 225 goals against, a 916 save percentage, 107 shots faced, 98 saved, only giving up 9 goals, does have an assist on the season. And of course, discrepancy at the time on ice, Frederik Andersen 425, Bussey 239. The thing with this is it comes down to what the Hurricanes want to do, and Bussey is waiver eligible, basically meaning he has to go through waivers to go back to Chicago. And with the run he's on right now, I don't see how this is a good move for the Hurricanes to try to get him to Chicago. Right now, with a lot of teams having to figure out their goaltending situations, I think Bussey would be an automatic pickup. I think some team will claim him. And if you're the Hurricanes, knowing that you're going to need a third goalie this season, because you already lost Kochetkov. I mean, yeah, he's officially back, but he's played a game on a condition similar to Chicago Wolves since the start of the season. We're now into November, and you don't know if Freddie's going to make it through the whole season. You don't know if Piotr's going to make it through the whole season. And they said he just started the season hurt on IR, and he just did a conditioning stint. So, and right now where Chicago is sitting at, and nothing against the Wolves or anything that they can do, but it's like with Nikita Quap and Kaisev and Miftakov, there's just no possibility that if you try to put Bussey through waivers, you're gonna lose him, and then you're down to what goalie out of this system are you gonna be comfortable with? Nikita Quap's doing okay right now, but I just don't think that I just don't think he's gonna be he'll have a hard time in the NHL. We saw that in the preseason. Miftakov struggled too a little bit. And yeah, while Kasayev did really well, he's still a young goalie too. He's like 20, who had a really great, off season to get his, production going, or at least just get his, development on the right track. But those three guys aren't ones you want to rely on for a third goalie if your main two are out in Kochetkov and Anderson. And I think for the Hurricanes, as of right now, you're gonna have to roll with three goalies on your roster and just kind of figure it out from there, because Bussy has done enough to get more opportunities in Carolina, and he's probably got a lot of teams on notice that, oh, he's a waiver eligible player. If the Hurricanes put him on, he's going to be an automatic snag. So if you're the Hurricanes, you don't want to lose a guy like that. And how are you going to figure out how to do three goalies? You're either going to have to figure out some rotation system, or you're going to have to. Obviously, there's going to be some conversation between Brind'Amour and Paul Schoenfelder, the goaltending coach, but there is no justifiable reason to try to move on from Bussy off this roster, because you're going to lose him to waivers. And honestly, I don't see the Hurricanes trading Freddie or Pyotr. That doesn't make any sense, because they brought Frederick Anderson back for a season. When he's on, he's a top 15, top 10 goalie in the league. And when Pyotr is going, he's won the Hurricanes a bunch of games over the last 2 seasons, and he's on the second to last year of his current contract, with next year being the final year before he becomes a unrestricted free agent after the 26-27 season. So I don't see a trade happening for one of those two guys, and I just don't think it's to be a smart move to put Bussy on waivers. So honestly, if you're the Hurricanes, this is a situation where you're just going to have to roll with your three goalies and kind of figure out how you're going to go from there in terms of ice time and who's going to get some starts and stuff like that, because there's a lot of parts of the season where there's condensed schedules where you're going to have a bunch of games in a number of days. And I think this is where, maybe having three goalies and maybe keeping guys healthy might be a benefit for the Hurricanes, especially when you look at guys who are right now, it's almost worrisome with their injuries, because you look at the week coming up. You got the Rangers on Tuesday, Minnesota Thursday, then you got a back-to-back against Buffalo and Toronto Saturday, Sunday, and that goes into playing Washington on Tuesday the 11th. And then guess what? You have another back-to-back at the end of that week against Vancouver and Edmonton. So in the fact that between the 4th and the 15th, you got 7 games in 11 days. 7 games in 11 days, with 2 sets of back-to-backs in the process of that. And one of them is home against Buffalo, and then the next night, 24 hours later, on the road in Toronto. This is a situation where maybe having 3 goalies might be the way to go for the Hurricanes. Because, yeah, you could probably, whoever you want to start against the Rangers, because you're going to have now, you had Sunday and Monday off. You play the Rangers Tuesday. So if you want to go back to Freddie, you can play him then. Then you figure out, okay, maybe it's Bussy against Minnesota or Pyotr against Minnesota. Then, okay, you give, Kochetkov a few extra days off. Then you go Anderson, Bussy on the back-to-back. And then you go back to Pyotr and then for against Washington. Then you go Freddie, Bussy for the back-to-back against Vancouver and Edmonton. You can still get Pyotr some games here and there, but then you ride your 2 guys who've been playing the most in those back-to-backs and just kind of figure it out from there. I think it's the best course of action, because that's a lot of, like I said, you got 7 games over the next 11 days. Just use your 3 goalies, because why would you want to give up Brandon Bussy right now when he's on a great run to start his season, and some team's going to pick him up. So if, right now where the goalies are at with the Hurricanes, best bet, just roll with the 3 of them. Figure out some rotations and just go from there, because obviously you need to keep these guys healthy. I think if you're going to play them, if you don't want to overdo with Freddie with all these games in a row, and you can't give up a goalie who could be going to waivers, and you don't want to trade anyone, stick with your 3 goalies and go from there. I think it's the best solution when it comes to that, because like I said, you got a lot of hockey over the next few days. Just go with that and figure it out from there. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. What do you think is the best situation for the Carolina Hurricanes? For me, just roll with all three. You got 2 sets of back-to-backs on the 8th and the 9th, and then the 14th, 15th. Figure out your goalie situation there and give your third goalie Minnesota, Washington, just to go give them some ice time in between that and have your 2 main guys go for the back-to-backs. But let me know what you think in the comments below. It's very interesting where the Carolina Hurricanes are at. I know they don't try to use 3 goalies, but this might be the season where you're going to need to do that just because of where eligible, waivers are in concern and the fact that the health has already been a thing this season. But it should be very interesting from there. Now, that being said, with said injuries, why should there be no panic when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes? Well, stick around. We'll talk about that here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Game tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Those zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. How big? You can find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talked about the game against Boston. We talked about the goaltending situation. Now we're going to talk about why there really should be no panic when it comes to the Hurricanes and where they're at this season. As it stands right now, the Hurricanes do have a 2 games in hand advantage on New Jersey and Pittsburgh, who have played 13 games each, and they have 18 points as well between the 2 teams. The Hurricanes have played 11 games, and they are only 4 points back of the division lead. So let's say the Hurricanes do go win those 2 games. Guess what? Now they're tied with New Jersey and Pittsburgh, and the thing is they got the tiebreaker on New Jersey since they beat them in the first game of the season at the home opener. That's a good sign for the Hurricanes. And also when you look at the goals for and goals allowed, outside of those 3 teams, yeah, they've scored 5 less goals, but they've also played 2 less games, and they've given up 32 compared to Pittsburgh's 36 and New Jersey's 40. Goal differential, Pittsburgh's a plus 10. Carolina's a plus 9. New Jersey's a plus 6. Now, for New Jersey, they're 5-0 at home, but they're 4-4-0 on the road. Pittsburgh 3-1-1 at home, 5-2-1 on the road. And for the Hurricanes, they're 3-1 at home, 4-3 on the road. But shootout-wise, Devils haven't hit a shootout yet. Pittsburgh's 0-2. Carolina's 1-0. With the team that is really hurting on injuries, no pun intended with that, the Hurricanes are still in a very good spot within the division. Is you're tied with Columbus in New York, but the thing with that is points percentage-wise, you're better than both of them because you got a game in hand on Columbus and you got 2 games in hand on the Rangers. The Islanders got 13 points, and so is Washington, so is Philadelphia. Every team in the division has a winning record. They're all above 500 in the points percentage, and they're all within 5 points from 1st to 8th. The thing is, the Hurricanes have played the least amount of games between all of those teams. Columbus is a plus 4. Rangers are even. Islanders are a minus 2 goal differential. Then Washington and Philadelphia are all plus 2s. Crazy part is the Rangers haven't won at home yet. They're 0-4-1, but they're 6-1-1 on the road, where Columbus 3-3 at home, 4-2 on the road. So the Hurricanes are in a good spot. They are 6-4-0 right now. Same as Columbus. Same thing as Philadelphia, but you see a lot of 4-4-2s, 5-4-1, 6-2-2. So the Hurricanes are putting themselves into a good spot that even with the Rangers winning 3 straight or the Islanders winning 2 straight, the Hurricanes have put themselves into a good spot. And if you look at the entire conference, the Hurricanes are technically they're 5th right now between Montreal, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and Detroit, who all have got 18 points, but the Hurricanes do have at least a game or two in hand on all of these teams. So the Hurricanes are right now, with all these injuries, the fifth best team in the Eastern Conference, and they're only second in goal differential behind Pittsburgh. That's putting yourself into a good spot if you're this team overall. Goal differential-wise, the Hurricanes are fourth, but behind Winnipeg, Colorado, and Pittsburgh. That's for the entire league in goal differential. And then points-wise, the Hurricanes are 12th. You got, Edmonton, Dallas, Vegas, surprisingly Anaheim, Utah, Detroit, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Montreal, and then Winnipeg and Colorado. The Hurricanes are in a good spot with everything they got going on. They are still the 12th best team in the league in terms of points. And goal differential, they're top, they're fourth. And in terms of the conference, they're still fifth. With, like I said, at least a game or two in hand. Montreal's got a game in hand on Carolina, but you got New Jersey, Pittsburgh, and Detroit all with 2. And the Hurricanes are within 4 points of the top seed in the East without having Shane Gostisbehere now twice, without Jacob Slavin, without Keandre Miller, without William Carrier, without Eric Robinson. And now you got Pyotr Kochetkov coming back from his conditioning stint after missing the start of the season. Yeah, it's do you wish there was a couple more wins? Obviously, yes. There's a couple games you could have won, but the Hurricanes digging deep into their 8th, 9th, 10th defenseman on your depth chart, you're down to your 14th forward in Bradley Nadeau after having to go use Mark Jankowski. You're even on your 3rd string goalie in Brandon Bussey, who's played very well so far. The Hurricanes overall have shown how good their depth is, and the fact that they're still putting themselves into a 5th in the East, 12th in the entire league in terms of points with games in hand on the teams that are ahead of them. They go win those 2 games that they got in hand on with some of these other teams. You're talking the number 1 seed in the East, and they're doing this without a healthy roster. The Hurricanes barely lost anyone all season last year. Like, most of the injuries came in the playoffs. If there's a time to have injuries, which you never really want them, but if you do, you want it early in the season like this, and then everyone stays healthy as the season goes along, knock on wood. But you're still doing a pretty good job, all things considered, with the fact that you have all these guys out, multiple games dating back to Philadelphia or even before that with Kochetkov, but you're still 7-4-0 on the season. The depth has gone pretty well for the Hurricanes to have them still be a competitive team. And the fact that once this team fully gets healthy, then you're going to see the Hurricanes team that everyone's like, okay, this is a team that could go win the Metro Division, can go win the Eastern Conference, depending on, how the playoffs fall in line for them. But I think you're in a good spot overall. So when it comes to talking about panic, I don't think there's a panic for the Carolina Hurricanes. The goaltending is fine. You've got goalies who are trying to, help out a team that is depleted on the blue line. So like I said, their 8th, 9th, and 10th defenseman, Mike Riley is your 7th, is in the main roster right now. The goaltending is fine. The goaltending numbers are fine as they are. And that's, like I said, that's with not a full healthy team in front of them. And yeah, you're still waiting for Nikolai Ehlers to score his first goal, which I think will happen soon. He's still productive. He's still getting points. It's just, the puck luck, or however you want to put it, is just not there for him right now because he's hitting the post, but he's still being productive. Andrei Svechnikov's got a couple goals recently, which is good. You got Owen Jarvis on really great starts to the season. You're getting contributions from the blue line of Alexander Nikishin scoring goals, and he leads the team in plus minus. You got Sean Walker eating up minutes and doing what he's doing, keeping the game simple and playing great defense. For me, there is no panic for the Hurricanes. I think they're going to be fine. It's just trying to overcome the injuries and see what's next for them. I think the Hurricanes are in a fine spot. They're going to be okay. I just think right now it's just there's no time for panic. Once everyone's fully healthy, this team will really get rolling, and they're doing fine right now. Like I said, it's not like, oh, no, we got to go trade for someone. Or yes, the power play is struggling, but overall this Hurricanes team is fine. It's just wait till everyone gets back healthy, wait until you get a full squad, and everyone kind of gets back in the groove. And I think the Hurricanes are really going to go off and running. Right now, team is 7-4, 3rd in the Metro, 5th in the East, 12th in the league. They're going to be fine. It's just weathering the storm on the injuries. But other than that, I think they'll be totally fine. As the season goes along, especially the fact they play the Rangers on Tuesday. But until we talk about that, this will be the Monday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen. Check out Locked on NHL Game Night. Every game every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked on NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin, where if you click the link trees in my bios, you can find all of my written content at thehockeywriters.com. I've been putting out a lot of stuff recently, so make sure to go check those out. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Surgecast and all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked on Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked on Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up so let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all their Keniacs who become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Enjoy your Monday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.